at a scale in the volatile regions like Middle Belt. So there's a Middle East, weapons leak, they cross our porous borders, they end up in hands of non-state actors. The Sahel is already awash with weapons from the collapse of Libya. A prolonged Iran-Israel-US conflict is going to add another stream of instability into our region if the care is not taken, into our border as well. And think about economic ripple effect. I've talked about that earlier on. So the global shipping, if it's disrupted, it's going to affect the production of oil for Nigeria in the diaspora. Most of us, particularly those who are in Gulf states, in Bahrain, in Kuwait, in Saudi Arabia and UAE. So there's a direct personal risk as well, physical safety, job disruption. And if remittances, which are the vital artery of household income for millions of Nigerian families, if they are disrupted, so the pain reaches the kitchen tables across our country. Foreign direct investment, which Nigeria desperately needs at this point in time, most African countries need that, tend to flee geopolitical uncertainty towards safe haven. It's going to have impact on our central bank. Now, another part of it is refugee crisis, refugee and displacement crisis. And if you look at Libya precedent, and this is the dimension I want to dwell on at length for everyone to understand the implication of that. Iran has a population of 90 million. The European Union Agency for Asylum has warned that displacement of even 10% of Iran population will rival the largest refugee flow they've ever seen in recent decades. Even partial destabilization we've seen now, and what is happening right now is far beyond partial, and that could generate refugee movement. So, refugee movement of unprecedented magnitude. So, let us look at ourselves and think of where will people go to, where are they heading to, where will they head when this happens, right? The United States, the primary architect of this war, has shut its doors. The Trump administration slashed refugee admissions to United States to record low ceiling of 7,500 in 2026, down from 125,000 under the previous administration, and with most of those spots reserved for only white Afrikaners from South Africa. Only 506 refugees were resettled from February to October 2025. So the U.S. refugee program has been effectively dismantled. Guess who will take all those refugees? Where would they go to? Europe is already bracing. Turkey, which already hosts more than 2.3 million of Syrian refugees, has built walls along its Iranian and Syrian borders, precisely because it fears of another wave it cannot absorb. The EU asylum reform, the framework, is not due to come into force until June 2026. So, Iranian refugees fleeing fighting in Iran, where do you think they will go to? Most of them may probably end up in Africa as well. So, but if I do want to speak in abstract projection, I want to speak from history, our own history, because Nigeria has already paid the price and nobody held the architect accountable. And the architect is NATO, United States. Nobody owed them accountable. When NATO led the United States to bomb Libya in 2011 and remove Muammar Gaddafi, took him away from power, they killed him, nobody sat in a room in Abuja or in Lagos or in Accra and asked what happened next. What happens when you destroy a state, flood a region with weapons, and leave vacuum? The answer came not in policy paper, but in bodies of Nigerian soldiers. The collapse of Libya government following the ousting of Muammar Gaddafi turned the country into major hub for arms smuggling. Weapons from Libya flooded neighboring regions, including Nigeria, where terrorist groups such as Boko Haram and ISWAP exploited that situation to fuel the violence and instability in Nigeria. Not only Nigeria, up to Burkina Faso, up to Niger. All the Gaddafi mercenary, all those fighters from across the Sahel who had been in the service were suddenly unemployed, armed, and radicalized. They moved south and west. They crossed porous borders. They marched with existing insurgencies. They unchecked arms trade originating from Libya, which became significant driver of conflict across West and North Africa, with Nigeria bearing the brunt of that destabilization. Look at what ISWAP is doing today. Did the United States pay for that? Did NATO pay for that? Who compensated Nigeria for the thousands of soldiers killed? The billions spent on counter-insurgency operations. The communities who are displaced in Nigeria today, schools were burned, girls were abducted. Did anyone in Washington or Brussels sit across from Abuja and say, okay, we destabilize a neighboring country? The consequences reach you and we take responsibility. No, they did not, and they will not. And that is where I want all of us to think about. We know what happened when they did that in Libya. And what should we do at this point in time? I want to close by opening remarks with a call to clarity, because awareness without action is just anxiety. For our government, Nigeria must ramp up oil production immediately, and that's my advice for those that I know. This is the moment to translate our global price surge into lasting fiscal benefit, if it goes more than that. On security, our agencies must distinguish between Nigeria exercising their constitutional right to peaceful protest and those attempting to import a foreign conflict, violence, into our street. And the distinction requires wisdom and restraint and professionalism, not over secularization. We've seen a lot of misinformation on the social media, and social media is already turning this war into religious conflict within Nigeria. We are seeing content that frames this as Christians versus Islam, that incite hatred and disrespect across faith line. And that's what I want people to understand and pay close attention to, that especially young people, young Nigeria must be the first line of defense, resistance against this narrative. Our task, or their task, is not just to understand this war, it is to refuse this war to divide us. We are inheriting a world that is more dangerous, more unpredictable, and more interconnected than any previous generation has faced. So the Iran-Israel war is not an abstraction. It is affecting the price of the fuel that powers the generator in our house, in Abuja, in Lagos, in wherever part of the Africa you are. It's affecting us, right? Everything is going up. So it is disrupting flight. Your relatives are trying to board. They cancel their flight from UAE, from Bahrain, from Qatar, and it may be influencing the security environment every day. So, and that is why all of us deserve that understanding of this connection. And understanding them is the first act of leadership. And that's why I chose to join this program today. Unfortunately,